Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for attending. I'm Scott at Chief Architect, and we're here today to talk about shower design. As we are here live today, I would encourage you to ask questions. And during the presentation, you can do that by raising your hand and chatting in your question. At the end of my prepared remarks, we'll allow you to raise your hand, we'll unmute your mic, and we'll take your questions live. You'll find these two settings in your GoToWebinar control panel. Today's session will be recorded. We'll be sending that out in the next day or so, along with a survey. We'd always appreciate your feedback. You may notice my occasional assistant here, Maya. Also on the meeting today are a number of Chief Architect staff members to keep an eye on me as well as help out. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me go ahead and set Maya down. And I'm going to share my screen.
In this shower design seminar, I'm going to cover the different wall styles used in showers, adding shower components such as the fixtures, benches, and niches. Then, for the tile, we'll look at how to apply and import them. Once the tile is applied, we'll look at the detail of the pattern for installation diagrams. I'm also going to complete the plan and elevation dimensions per the National Kitchen and Bath Association's guidelines. You can complete these same steps using our Chief Challenge plan. You can download this plan from our user forum, Chief Talk. I would encourage you to follow the steps to help in your learning, and then you can post your results using the hashtag Chief Challenge on social media. Let's get started. Let's begin the seminar by taking a look at the three different wall types you can use for your showers. In this plan view, I'll use the glass shower wall and draw two different wall types. Then I'll use the straight glass pony wall and draw a third wall. Now let's go over to 3D view and take a look at these different types of walls. This center wall, let's assume that we want this to be a framed wall and we don't want it to go to the ceiling. You can click on the top of the wall and you can pull it down. Using this tool, you can also create an elevation and very precisely set the dimension of that wall. Other thing you can do is you can open it up by double clicking, and then you can mark that it's a railing. When you mark that it's a railing, you need to go over to the rail style and mark that it's a solid railing. That will change it. If you zoom in, you can see there is a default cap on here. You can change that material in 3D to be stainless or aluminum. If you want to change the height of this railing wall, you can be very specific about that underneath the Newels and Balusters tab. Let's type in 84 inches and you can very precisely set the height of that wall. Now, as I mentioned, you can use the material eyedropper. If I pick up the material off of the faucet, come over here and apply it onto that top rail cap, you can then set that to be a stainless material. Now for this second wall type, this is called a glass pony wall. Again, you can click on the top of it if you don't want it to go all the way to the ceiling. You can also precisely dimension it in a wall elevation. These are the three basic types of walls you can use for your showers in Chief Architect. For this seminar, I'm going to use a straight glass shower wall, and I'm going to draw it from edge to edge to fill in this room space and create our shower. So let me go ahead and delete these and let's begin the process. In the plan view, I'm going to go ahead and use the straight glass shower wall. I'm going to come over here and just simply click and drag over the top of the existing wall. Let's return to the 3D view and take a look. As we tilt the camera up, you're going to notice there is no room molding for the wainscot or the wall covering down below. That's because inside of the room definition for this shower room, you're going to notice that there is no molding marked in here, as well as the wall covering is currently removed. Now the first step we want to do for the shower is we want to create our shower door. Let's go up to our door tools, and you're going to find a specific tool for a shower door. This is the last tool in my toolbar on the far left hand side of the menu. Let's go ahead and click and place a shower door. Now let's just place it next to the wall in here. You're going to notice that in my 2D view it swings both directions. I'm using a default door that swings both directions, a very large shower. If we double click to open up this door, you're going to see this option on the options panel where it swings from both directions right in this area. To change the hinge side of the door, while the door is still selected, you can come down and you can change the hinge side of the door, flip that around. You can also display that this door is open. Typically, you want your shower doors to open outward from the shower. You can also use this tool to change the swing side and force that door to open into the shower, as well as if you double click on it, you can come in here on the general panel and you can control exactly how far open you want that door to display, both in your plan view and in your 3D view, so you can display it either as open or closed. Next, I want to talk about placing a curb, a bench, and some niches. Let's go ahead and tilt our view up, and the first thing I want to do is I want to place a bench back along this back wall. I'm going to do this from the floor plan view. Move back over into the floor plan view. Let's zoom into this area. I prefer to use the custom countertop tool. You'll find that tool again underneath the cabinet tool. It's called the custom countertop. The reason I like to use this tool is because it comes in on the right layer. It's also easy to curve and put an edge profile on it. For this custom countertop bench, let's go ahead and double click and open it up. On the general panel, since these are typically designed to go on top of a countertop, I'm going to set the thickness of this bench to 4 inches, and then the height of this, let's go ahead and set the floor to top at 21 inches. With your temporary dimensions, you can click on the edge of the countertop, and let me just switch my view over from the floor plan view to the kitchen and bath view. And then you can set the dimension of this, and I'm going to put that in at 18 inches for the width of it. Again, you can see that that bench is now a floating bench. You can use the material painter and paint any of the materials you want for that bench. Now for a curb, let's assume you want a curb in this area. Again, I'm going to use the custom countertop from the floor plan view. I'm going to set the height of it to be 4 inches and the floor to bottom at 0. And if we were just to look at that real quickly, let's just take and do the same approach. Let's use our custom countertop. I'll come in here and make this a little bit larger so you can see this. Snap on the edge of it. Again, let's take the custom countertop, let's set the thickness of it, maybe 4 inches, and then the height of it, floor to top, we'll also set that to be 4 inches, so that will be sitting right on the floor. And then if you go into the 3D view, what you can do with this is take your door, open it up, and move the floor to bottom so that it's at the top or maybe slightly above your curb. Then you can easily set your shower door just above that curb. I wouldn't worry about the bottom of the wall going into that. You'll never see it. You can always have the detail that says the glass sits on the top of the curb. Now let's talk about niches. I'm going to go ahead and delete and undo that door height. Let's tilt our view back in here, and I want to put a couple of niches on the back wall. Let's begin by looking at our niche tool. You'll find this niche tool underneath the window tools, and it's the bottom tool on this opening called the wall niche. Let's come over here, let's click and place our wall niche. Now, let's go ahead and set the parameters of this niche by opening up, double click. I'm going to come over on the general panel. The width, 14.5 inches, will fit in between the existing framing. I'm going to change the height of this to be 44 inches in height. And then the floor to bottom, let's set that from the finished floor. Let's assume we're doing a remodel condition. We'll set that from the finished floor at exactly 38 inches. The depth of the niche, this will depend on your wall thickness, but I'm going to set this one at 2.5 inches. Now note there is the ability to put an arch on your niches if you wanted to come in here, put an arch as well as different shapes, but I'm going to remove the arch and just leave this as a standard square niche. 44 inches in height, 38 inches to the bottom. And from the wall elevation, I want to get this positioned, and then I'm going to do a copy and reflect around the other side. So let's move into the floor plan view. I'm going to use the wall elevation tool. You'll find that underneath of the orthographic view tools. Come in here, use the wall elevation, cut through the wall. I'm going to take this niche, and the first thing I want to do is use the automatic NKBA dimensions. You'll see that on the far left hand side of my screen. Let's go ahead and place that. I'm going to click on the niche itself. I'm going to position that to be 8 inches by selecting the niche, moving my cursor over that dimension and typing in the value. I can now take that niche that's quite large, do a copy and reflect about, and get it on the other side. Now before I do that, I want to put a series of shelves inside of the niche. Let's zoom in and take a look. To put the shelves inside of the niche, let's go up to our cabinet tool. Underneath the cabinet tool, you're going to find a tool called the shelf tool. As you go to place the shelf in the niche, you may not see the shelf actually want to place. Come over to the side and it will place the shelf. Let's go ahead and open up this shelf and make a few settings on it. Double click to open it up. I want to have the width of it match the niche itself, so let's put it at 14.5. Height of it, which is going to be the thickness, is 1.5 inches, and then the depth, I think we set the niche at 2.5 inches. We'll go ahead and set that. If you want to go in and change the label, you could specify a label and call it a shelf so that it shows up. Now to position this shelf, I'm going to want to do this in the plan view. Let's go back over into the plan view. You can grab this shelf, you can slide it over, position it into place. I like to use the point-to-point tool while the shelf is still selected. I'm going to come down, use this point-to-point tool, pick up the point of the shelf. Then I'm going to move up, pick up the point of the niche, and position that exactly. Let's go back into the elevation view, and then we can set the elevation of this. Arbitrarily, I'm just going to pull this down to where it looks good visually. I want to create another copy of it. I want exactly 12 inches in between it, and then we'll take the two shelves and the niche and copy and reflect it around the side of the room. While the shelf is selected, I'm going to use the multiple copy tool. I find this easy to use. I'm going to set the copy at 13.5 inches. That will leave me a 12-inch gap. I'm going to come over here. My cursor will change. I'll just slide that up until I get a copy of that shelf. Press the space bar to get out of selection mode. Click on the niche, hold my shift key down, grab the shelf, hold my shift key down, and click the other shelf. I have three objects selected. You might be able to see that in the lower left hand corner. And now I'm going to use the copy tool, again in the far left hand corner, copy, reflect about. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can see that I get the indicator on the room. And now I can exactly position that niche into the room. And as I refresh those dimensions, you can see that that niche is exactly 8 inches from the side of the wall, and it's symmetrical in the positioning of it. Let's move on and take a look at placing tile for the shower. So we move back over into the 3D view. I'm also going to open up our library catalog on the far right hand side of the screen. Inside of the catalog, I'm going to open up our manufacturer catalogs. I'm going to come down to one of our newer tile companies called Mercury Mosaics. And let's take a look at some of their tiles that they have available. And specifically, let's go into their 3x8 subway tile and take a look at this brighter bluebell tile that they have. Now the easiest way to apply your tile in here is just to come over here, grab the material. Make sure your material painter is in this component mode. You'll find this component mode down in the lower left hand corner, and I'm in component mode, which means it's going to apply it onto the wall. Let's switch over back into our 3D view so that it's in our standard view so we can actually see the way this tile is applying. So what I've done here is just clicked on the wall and applied the tile onto the specific wall and changed the wall material. You can easily do that on a wall by wall basis and change the tile. Now I'll just come over and grab the other wall, and that's a very quick way to apply your tile inside of the shower. Now if we kind of rotate around a little bit and you take a look at the broader room, you're going to see that I have a wainscoting in here and also a tile banding. A lot of times having a nice tile band inside of your shower is good for stability to prevent vertigo. You can easily do that inside of the shower. Let's just click inside of here. We could do that a couple of ways. One is you could do it through a wall covering. We could click on the wall covering. We could come in here, click Add New. Let's browse out into our plan materials and let's find that material. I'll just come down here and grab the Deco white large Moroccan fish scales. Sounds pretty fun. And I'm going to set the height of that to be 12 inches and then the floor to bottom at 54 inches. That will match, if I did the math on that, the same height as the existing molding. You could also set that as a chair rail molding and come in there and position that molding. This is a very fast way to apply your tiles inside of a shower. While we've created a great looking shower here, I want to create something a little bit more custom. As you can see in the view that I've created in the graphic down here, I have a shape that comes up one side, and on the back side it's a little bit higher. It's at the top of the niche, and then symmetrical, the other side you can't see, would match the left facing wall. Let's take a look at the process on how to do that. What I'm going to do is just press the undo button here, And I'm going to eliminate that wall covering that we put in there for the tile banding. I'm going to take the material painter and let's just paint this back wall to be the same drywall, so we're back at this position. The first step I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 different backsplashes, and I'm going to use the backsplash tool to do this. A lower backsplash, a tile banding that will be at the top of the niche, and then another backsplash above that that will then have the same material. So let's do this from the elevation view that we have open, and what I'm going to do is come in here with the backsplash tool. You'll find this again underneath the cabinet tool. I'm going to come in and grab the custom backsplash, and then we'll just kind of come down here at the corner, pick up the snap. I'm just going to draw this in right around here. We'll give ourselves a little bit of room because what I want to do for the top of the niche, actually let me use the temporary dimension. Let's click on that. And I'm going to use this temporary dimension. I'm going to set this to be 70 inches. And that'll position it. Let's use the same backsplash tool. Let's pick up the snap off of this. Let's pull that up. Again, right in this area, let's just check our dimension. And I'm going to set that exactly at 12 inches. And then one final backsplash from this point up to the top. And we'll just pick up the snap. I now have 3 different backsplashes, and in the 3D view, let's use our material painter and let's just grab the side and let's paint the top. I have to be careful not to get the glass wall. It's sometimes difficult to see. And now I can get that banding in there, and we'll just use the same material eyedropper, pick it up off of that Moroccan seashell tile and apply it on there. So I now have 3 different backsplashes, and to create that interesting shape on the side of the wall, I want to come in and generate a new wall elevation and walk through the steps in creating that shape. From the floor plan view, I'm going to use this orthographic view tool, and instead of using the specific tool for wall elevation, which will restrict it just to the shower, I also want to see the larger bathroom so I can tie into the existing banding. You can see that banding down in this view over here, and I want to be able to see that when I generate the view. So let me use this elevation tool that will generate that view, and let's just cut right through the side of that. And in this view, let's zoom in. I'll just use the wheel on my mouse. I'm going to use a CAD tool because I want to create the shape that will come from the left side to the upper side of the niche. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the line tool. And let's go ahead and click and draw a line. I'm going to turn my crosshairs on. Equals on the keyboard is my crosshair. And I'm just going to kind of zoom in approximately. I'm going to draw a line, and I want it to come to the top of the niche. Let's pull that down. I'm going to hold my control key down so that it overrides bumping and snapping. And we'll just kind of zoom in and make sure that we're somewhat close. You can see that somewhat close, but I'm going to click on the end of that line, and I'm just going to pull it in. Again, trying to be somewhat close for the video. Let's go back over, and I'm just using the wheel and the keyboard and panning over to position this so that we get it pretty close to where the start and stop of the banding is and where the top of the niche is. So I've drawn a line in here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a break right in the center. So click on the line. I'm going to use the break tool. You'll find this in the lower edit menu, break. I'm going to move along this line until I get the midpoint snap, and I'm going to put a break. That allows me to have an upper segment and a lower segment. The upper segment is currently highlighted in red. I'm going to use the tool that says convert line to arc. Click on the lower segment, convert line to arc. And then with this lower triangle, I'm just going to kind of pull this in to get it approximately tangent. Before I make a copy of this and move it to the lower tile banding, let's check the radius and be very specific for the fabricator. The lower segment you can see is highlighted in red. That means it's currently active. I'm going to double click on that, and I want to specify the radius. And before I specify the radius, I want to make sure that I lock the chord, which is basically the distance between the 2 endpoints. Lock the chord, and I'm going to set that radius to be 50 inches. Press the tab key. It will give you the other values. Let's click on the upper segment as well. Let's double check what this is. Again, let's lock the chord, and I'm going to set this to be 38 inches. So this will just allow me to be very specific for my fabricator, and now I have the curve that I want for the upper banding. I'm going to use the copy tool and slide a copy of this down for the lower banding. Use the copy tool. And while that is active, I'm going to use the tool called point-to-point move. Let's zoom in as we get ready to do this. I'm going to click on the upper point. I'm going to slide down, pull that in to the lower point, click, and place that line. That allows me to be very specific to meet the top and bottom edge banding and maintain the symmetry of the two lines. Now the lower line is still selected that I made a copy of. You're going to see a small diamond at the end. I'm going to pull that up, snap it onto the upper wall. Let's zoom out. Let's slide over and do the same operation. Let's pull this diamond down until it snaps onto that line. When you do that, it should then form an enclosed polyline, and we can now convert that to a solid. While the polyline is still selected, lower edit menu, come down to convert polyline, and what I want to do is actually convert it to a polyline solid. At this point the program will ask me how thick I want it to be. I'm just going to set it to be 1/4 of an inch, and then specifically on the line style, this comes in on a different CAD layer, CAD default in my case. I'm going to go over here. I like to put these on the same layer, maybe come down, do a search for backsplash, and I might even create just a custom layer of this. Let's just make a copy of it, and I'll just call it backsplash 2. If I ever need to isolate the regular backsplash from this custom one, I now have the layer to do it. And once I've completed that, the last step that I need to do is let's just use the material eyedropper. Let's pick up the Moroccan fish scales and we'll apply it on there. In the 3D view, you can see the shape. Let's go ahead and grab it. Let's rotate around. Let's use the copy tool. Copy, reflect about, pick up the center of the room for the shower. Now let's place the shower fixtures. Let me place those fixtures in the floor plan view. We'll zoom in. I'm going to open up my catalog browser into my custom library where I've saved some specific fixtures for this project. Sometimes I do that, but you can browse out and find these individual fixtures both in the manufacturer and custom areas. I'm just going to come into the fixture groupings, place these. Let's begin with this side. I'll rotate these around, kind of position it into place, snap it about against that wall. Once I've figured out exactly where they should be, let's just use the copy, reflect about. Typically you might want to dimension those before you do the copy and reflect about. The last couple, let's place our shower head and then the strip drain, and let's make sure that these two objects are centered in the room. We'll center that in the room, and then let's go ahead and center that in the room as well. And now what I need to do is update the dimensions, and you're going to notice right now I have this open wall elevation. It's called E1. I like to kind of be specific about this. I might tap on this, come down to the open button, and you can see the callout label. Let's just give it maybe the letter A that will display. And then I also like to name this camera. I just call it the main wall. That way in the project browser it will show up and be more meaningful for me, especially if I have a larger plan. Let's return over into that elevation view, take a look at what we have. Let's zoom down. You can now see some of those fixtures that we placed, and that looks pretty good. If you need to add a dimension and you've already placed your dimensions and you don't want to redo these, one of the things that I'll do is let's just use our dimension tool, and I'm just going to use the end-to-end dimension because this is pretty quick. And I'm just going to draw an end-to-end dimension. I'm going to pull it down. I want to pick up the center line for that drain. Let's pull it up into the drain. And then I can take that and toggle it to be a center line. You have to click on the extension itself. You can toggle that to be a center line, and then we'll give ourselves a little bit of room down in here so we can see the way that looks. So there is the completed wall elevation. It's ready to be sent out to your layout or your construction drawings. And then let's go over and shoot a final wall elevation of that side wall, which we actually probably should already have open. You can see the fixtures on it. Again, here's an example. If you wanted to take that control, this is a block. I may need to slide that up right into that tile banding, and that looks pretty good. To create the wall elevation, I'm actually going to shoot a new wall elevation because I don't want to see the tub side of the wall. Let's close this elevation view, and from the floor plan view, let's specifically use the elevation camera that will isolate it just to that room. As I dimension this sidewall elevation, the first step I'm going to take is to unblock the fixtures that came in as a single architectural block. This unblock command is in my lower edit menu. I'm going to now unblock those. Next, let's use the automatic NKBA dimensions. This will place as many dimensions as the program can find. You're going to notice that there are a few that are missing. That's okay. Let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I'm going to use my dimension tool. I'm going to use the end-to-end dimension tool. I'm going to draw a dimension across the top. Let's go ahead and slide that up. Notice that my centerline dimension for the shower fixture is missing on the sidewalls. When you click on the dimension, you're going to see the extra diamond. I'm just going to pull that off to one side, and we'll do the exact same thing off to the other side. As we come down, you're going to notice that it picked up the bench, didn't pick up the tile banding. Again, let's click on the dimension. We'll pull that in, grab the other diamond, pull that in, and now you see that dimension appear. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Let's use the end-to-end dimension tool again. Let's draw a dimension that goes top to bottom. Slide that over. And then I'm just going to use the extra diamond, clip that on to the bottom of the tile banding, and also let's clip that on to top of the tile banding, give us a little extra room. And I've noticed that the centerline dimension is not picking up the center lines of the fixture on the sides. Let's go ahead and use the centerline tool specifically for these dimensions. As I drag the centerline dimension down through the center, you're going to notice that it picks up a lot of the CAD. It's a little bit noisy in here. So we slide this clear out. It picked up all of the CAD points in here. Let's modify, I'm going to delete that. Let's modify our dimension default temporarily. I'm going to go into the Edit Active View underneath the selected defaults. And currently I'm using the dimension default for kitchen and bath. I'm just going to temporarily edit this, uncheck the CAD objects, and then let's reuse that centerline tool. Let's slide back down. Let's pull the centerline back down through, and now it's only picking up those center lines for the particular shower fixtures. Let's make a little bit of room for it. Let's slide it over, and that looks pretty good with the exception the center line is going to the center of the shower fixture. I want it to go to the center of the water source, and to do that I'm going to draw a CAD line. Let's just draw a CAD line in here that will represent where that center line is. We'll pull the center line diamond from the fixture to the CAD object. Let's just adjust that because that actually should be 24 inches. And on the extension, let's toggle it to be a center line, and now we can pull that in directly towards that fixture. So just a little tip that when you create a center line on the side of a fixture like this, it does go to the center of the fixture. You want it to go to the center of the water source, and in that case I just used a CAD line. So we zoom back out, the side looks pretty good. And then on the bottom, let's go in here, again do a little bit of cleanup. Let's use the extra diamond, we'll pull that off to the edge over here. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll grab the extra diamond, pull that over until we get that mark. And then also from the bench, let's create one more dimension for the end. We'll pull that over, and then let's use the end-to-end dimension and just draw that right across the bottom of the wall. And the dimension isn't picking up the wall because we temporarily turned off the CAD lines. I'm going to go back in and turn that on. And we turn that off from the center line option to make it a little bit cleaner process. So let's just turn that back on. Let's run the end-to-end dimension and go from end to end. There it is. Pull that down, and let's zoom in, make sure that we're also picking up the right point, not the side. And that looks pretty good. Now a few other things you can do. I've drawn a CAD box in the completed version that you see here on your screen. Also for the tile banding, I put in the callouts for the particular radius. You can click on each line segment and put the radius. And here's what my completed variation of this wall elevation looks like. Now I've created some of the wall elevation dimensions, and for the floor plan dimensions, sometimes it's easy to just click in the room, use the automatic NKBA dimension tool. It's going to give you a lot of dimensions. I'm going to go through and do a little bit of cleanup. I'm just going to take that bottom dimension string, remove it. I'm not going to use the duplicated dimension string for the center lines. Maybe just pull these in. And let's just clean up the two side walls. A lot of times I won't duplicate my dimensions if I've already dimensioned it in the wall elevation and the floor plan, just to pick one or the other, which one is most appropriate. Let's just take this side wall elevation, look at it, and it looks pretty good. It's got the center line dimensions, it's got the end-to-end dimension. That looks good. And then on the back wall, a little bit noisy. Let's start with cleaning up the center line dimension. It's picked up all the center lines on the fixtures. I'm just going to pull those diamonds off. We'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll just pull those diamonds just a little ways off the object, and I think that's cleaned it up pretty good for the floor plan dimensions. Now the final aspect for the seminar, let's go back over into our 3D view, and I want to talk about tile and tile offset. If you look at the back tile in here, one of the things we might do is take this tile and begin right above the banding with a full length tile. Let's talk about how to do a pattern in your elevation view. If you want to give this to your installation crew, let's open up that rear elevation camera that we already have going, and let's just kind of slide in here, zoom in using our wheel on our mouse. You're going to notice that this tile has a partial tile right above the banding. And I want to change the offset of this tile so that it begins with a full height tile right above the banding. Currently, when you change the offset for this tile, not only will it change the tile above the banding, it will also change the tile below the banding. So I need to make a copy of the material to begin with, and I'm just going to make a copy of it for the upper and lower. We can discover what this material is. Let's just see what it is. It's the 12W Blue Bell 3x8 subway. Let's also measure and determine what the offset needs to be for both the top and bottom. To do that, I'm going to use the tape measure. Let's zoom in a little bit closer using this tape measure tool. And what I need to do on the first segment, let's just measure this. It's 1 1/8 inches on the top, so we're going to change that offset 1 1/8 inches so that tile begins right at the top. Then on the bottom, let's also move this tape measure, and it's 1 7/8 approximately that we need to move that tile up. So I said previously we do need to make 2 copies of this tile, because if I change it on one, it will change it on the other, and that offset will keep moving around. So to create a copy of this material, I'm going to go up into my menu, underneath 3D, come down to materials, and we're going to find that material for that component, and I believe it was the Blue Bell tile. And I'm going to make 2 copies of this, and we'll just call it top pattern, which is this view over here. You can also change the view of it if we wanted to change this from a plane to maybe a box. You can see the preview of it. I'm going to take this tile for the top, and I'm going to change the offset down here for the vertical offset, and we're going to subtract 1 1/8 inches. So let's use a negative value, 1.125. Press the tab key. You might see it shift. That's going to pull the tile down. Okay, we've created tile number 1. Let's also create a copy of that, and we'll just call it bottom. And then for the offset in this case, we'll make it a positive 1 7/8. And that should shift that tile in the other direction. Now that I have those 2 tiles, I can easily apply these 2 tiles. Let's open up our material painter. Go up to the spray can here for the material painter, and I'm going to come down, grab those plan materials, one for the top. Let's grab that material for the top. Apply it onto the top. You can see the tile is set exactly. One more for the bottom. Come down, grab the bottom. Spray that on the bottom, and now I have a tile that would begin at the top of the banding and the bottom of the banding. And that's the process you do. You make a copy of the material, and then you can easily spray that on. It won't change the tile in other locations if you're using it on other walls or on the floor or in another room. Let's move back over into the 3D view. You can now see that tile in this view. If you want to switch it to the vector view, you can also switch it to the vector view. Toggle that back, move it back to the standard view. Now the last segment I want to talk about is importing a new tile. We have a number of tiles available in the program. We've been using the tile from Mercury Mosaics. We also have other tiles such as those from Dale Tile. If the tile's not available, obviously you want to bug your tile rep and ask them to make it available so that it can be used in software like Chief Architect. Let's take a look at the process of importing a tile if you find one that's not available or your client gives you an image of one. I'm going to go out, open up a web browser, we're going to search for a tile, and then we're going to find one. Let me toggle over to a web browser. I'm going to do a search for a glass tile, and let's just kind of scroll down. Now, any tile that has at an angle like the one that my cursor's over currently doesn't really work, as well as one that has other photos in it. You want a tile that is straight on. I'm going to take this tile down here that is the linear glass mosaic tile and use this as an example. And here's the bigger view of it. As I click on it, let's go back into the program and get ready to create a copy of this tile. Let me toggle back over into the program. Here's what I'm going to do. Underneath my Tools menu, I'll begin with the screen capture setup. The important thing underneath the screen capture setup, one, it's going to come in as a material. There are other options, but it's important for the material. Also, since I'm just using one screen for the purpose of the video, I want to make sure that I hide Chief Architect's program while doing the capture. So this is all set up. Let's go through, click the capture button now. That's going to hide the program. I'm going to come over and you're going to notice that this tile is finger jointed. So when I do the screen capture with this marquee, I'm going to be very careful about not getting those finger joints. And we'll just come in here. I'm going to also pull it back. Again, I don't want to get the finger joints. I'll release. That will then put the material right into the program. A lot of times I like to toggle back in, figure out what the name of this is. Maybe use the copy button here. I'll just copy that text. Control C, move back over, and I'm going to rename this. Let's just right click on it, rename, and then I'll just paste that value in there. Now before I apply this, you want this tile to repeat. Let's close this capture done. I want to go in here and I want this tile to repeat. So before I apply this, let's go in and look at some of the attributes. Let's open up the object. Here's the name of it. Currently there is no pattern. Let's go in, let's look at the pattern. I'm going to probably change this to a half offset grid. You can see the preview of it. If you want to adjust it, let's set it to be 3 by 8. You can change the line color, maybe make that a little bit easier gray. There's the pattern that we'll get. And then probably what's important here is on the image itself, you want to uncheck the stretch to fit so this will repeat across the wall. And then you can make other settings in here for the properties of the material, how that shows in 3D. For the most part, I'm going to accept those defaults. Let's go ahead and use that, spray it on the back wall, and take a look. And that's the way you apply that tile that you can import in from an image you find out on the internet. And here's the view of that. To practice these steps in the video, we have posted the Chief Challenge file that you can repeat these same steps and then post your results on social media using the hashtag Chief Challenge.
So with that, let me just do a couple of things here with closing it out, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Carrie's going to solicit questions. We'll keep it 2 bathrooms. I want to make sure that you're aware of learning resources. We've been doing these free webinars on Thursdays at noon. Next Thursday, same place, same time, we're going to be doing closet design. And we have one of our favorite rendering and designers, Kayla, will be presenting that next Thursday at noon. Make sure you sign up for that. Also, if we go back here and talk about, we have a virtual training seminars. These are 4-hour classes. They're across 4 days. They're a full class. This is a great way to learn. We've shifted most of our training to virtual classes, and these are starting soon. And I think the last thing is make sure that you are aware of one-on-one training, our videos, how-to articles, and Chief Talk, great resource. And with that, I'm going to ask Carrie to solicit questions that would be related to the bathroom and the shower that we've been working on. Make sure that when she calls on you, just unmute your mic. With that, Carrie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Scott. We have a question from Lori Steinman. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Lori, and ask your question.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hey, Lori.
I was just curious about the banding in the back of the shower. The
Okay.
fishtails were not, the material needed to be adjusted on those two. Can you just go through that again so that the fishtails are not cut off on top and bottom?
Okay, I'll try to do that. Let's just go back to this regular. Let's just press the undo button a couple times so I get back to the regular blue.
Oh, the other thing, Scott, if I may ask, is the fishtails on the side of the wall, on the side walls are horizontal, and then here they're vertical. So I'm not sure.
Okay, sure. Yeah, if you saw how I made a copy, Lori, of the upper tile and the lower tile.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if the material is being applied in a way that you didn't like, and let's assume that they're in the other direction, then make a copy of it. And then when you make a copy of it, you can easily come in here and adjust that texture and come in here. Right now, there's no angle in here, but you could type 45, 90, whatever you wanted to make that adjustment. So if I put in 45, anyways, you have control over how that's going to be treated.
Do you always have to make a copy?
You do today. We're working on making that easier, but the reason you have to make a copy is it's only one material that's being used. And when you make the changes to the material, wherever you've used it, and in this case, we've used it, you know,
Oh, I see, right.
in a few different places, and maybe I've used it in another room that you can't see here.
I see.
And so I need to be specific on, hey, this is the material for this segment that I'm installing. If doing a tile installation diagram or having that elevation view is important, you do need to make a copy of it. We are working to make that easier, but underneath the hood is basically it's making a copy of it so you can be very specific in how you adjust those tiles.
I see. Okay.
Okay, now you asked about making an adjustment into this tile. So the fish scale started at the bottom, right?
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's especially problematic at the top where the top of this fish, you know, the bottom is less important, I would think.
Yeah. Well, in this case, I would do the same process. I'd make a copy of it. I'm not going to for this, but I'm going to come in here and just measure and see roughly what we have in here. And it looks like about 1 9/16 that I need to shift this up. Would you agree?
Okay. Yes.
So in that case, we can take this tile and we can come down here and we can shift that up. That was horizontal. 1 9/16, and that should pull it up. If I did that right, it should jump up.
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
Right?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Was that it, Lori?
Yes. Oh, but now the bottom is messed up.
Well, that in that case, right?
Yeah. What would you do?
Well, something's got to give. I might make my backsplash smaller.
Okay.
But then, you know, then it's not going to be symmetrical. Yeah.
But maybe the fish tails on the sidewalls should be vertical like this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, we have a question from Alfred Chopin.
Yeah, looking at your design there, I had one project a little bit similar to that, but we wanted to put metal banding around the as trim around that center accent. How would you show metal trim? Would you just draw it in like you did as a line and then offset it and then make it a solid and then give it the metal contrast? Is that, you would do that basically the same?
So Alfred, as we're looking at the screen here, I have the tile banding. You want a metal banding that would show up that has a profile you could assign to it on the top and the bottom?
As an accent to divide the top wall to your accent and to your lower wall to your accent, like a gold trim that would define your accent there.
Okay. So there'd be a few different ways you could do this. You could open up the room and you could put a chair rail in here, right? That might be one easy, quick way to do it. But it's going to be more complicated with the swoop on the side. So I'm going to probably just do this with a CAD. And I drew a line here. I'm going to convert that line to a molding, and then I'll set the profile to it. So let's take the line. Let's convert it to a molding profile. We'll assign, you know, a molding. You know, if you went out there, right now it's just a square molding. Let's just say that's good enough for now. And, you know, there it is. Pull that down, snap it, and then you stretch it side to side, maybe move it down depending on what you want to do. Does that work for you?
Right, now, then you could just use your height of that molding to define your accent as far as some type of height to it, correct?
Well, right now I'm just doing it in an elevation view, so I know that this kind of matches the, the tile banding.
Mhm.
And right now I think that was just a 1-inch square molding, and you can open that up and define your profile. If you want to be specific, and I think the easiest way to do it would just be to go into your room definition itself, click inside the room. And if this were just a square molding, you could come in here and put a chair molding and be very specific. If we just grabbed a molding in here, and let's assume we just grabbed a profile that was like that, and then you can specifically set the dimension of this. So you've got a vertical offset. So if we said that was maybe 66 inches, I'm not sure exactly where that will be. That's right. And again, it's a little bit crazy because, I've got the swoop on there. But setting a room molding profile, if it's just a simple square, and then you could set 2 of those and then give it a distance of 12 inches in between them. And then that's a quick way to do your banding with it. But if you got a crazy shape like I have there, that won't work as well. Does
Okay.
that help?
Yeah, that gives me some idea, but when I saw you do your line and then created your solid out of that, I was thinking you could use that same method to create a small, so you could actually follow your swoop.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can still do that. If we
Okay.
went back in here and, you could make a copy of that line. I made a copy of that line and moved it down, but you could do the exact same thing.
And then maybe go like just a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, whatever the size you want. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And let's just, yeah, anyways, I've got a copy of that line. Let's just maybe move that up, 1 inch. So I only grabbed the one line there, but then you can convert it and make
Right.
it and have it follow it the same way, right?
Perfect.
Does that work?
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what, yeah. That's it. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, I'm going to check in with Ebony Stevenson. Hi, Ebony. Go ahead and ask your question.
I've got a quick question for you about the glass shower door. Do you have any recommendations on the best way to make that a sliding barn glass door?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't use this door if I deleted it. I've seen a couple of people using these shower glass barn doors. Are you doing that?
I am.
Huh.
They look a little crazy because I'm probably not doing it right, but they
Let's
come out.
find my barn door here. Where is my barn door? There we go. So let's put a barn door in here. Okay. And you're going to want to go through and make some customizations to this, right? You're going to want to take the door, let's just open it up, and you're going to want to go into the casing and pop that off and go to the frame and then pop that stuff off. Where is the frame? General, barn door, thickness, let's make it 3/8. I'm assuming that's what my glass is. And then casing, jam, has a jam. There we go. I think that's about it. And then obviously change your door style to a slab and change your hardware and then just paint it. And then add it to your library. And you got, your own glass door.
Any suggestion of how to have the track go all the way across the wall from end to end?
Well, let's see. I'm probably going to ask Adrian maybe to jump in here. I'll open the door up while she's preparing. Let's see underneath the hardware here, sliding tracks in from sides. we have any staff members out there that know how to make this trim go all the way across?
I believe, this is Adrian, it is just defined by the width of the door opening itself.
Okay.
So right now, I don't think there's a control in there just for extending the side.
Mm-hmm. There is some settings for the hardware, but I'm not seeing where it says go side to side. Do we have Adrian, do we have a separate barn door hanger hardware in the library? You
We
can place
do, that's a good
individually?
idea. Instead of using the automatic hardware, a person could place the hardware manually and just stretch it full width. So that is in the library browser under bonus catalogs. Doors number 1, the sliding barn doors, there's a whole selection of hardware in that catalog. We can put a link to that catalog down there as
Okay,
well.
yeah, I may not have that downloaded here. Huh, there we go. All right. So then, Ebony, what you'd end up doing, I'll just pull that up, is you would just place a regular slab door and then get rid of that hardware on there. And then do it that way. Does that work for you?
That works for me. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Scott, we have a question from Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. I was just wondering if you could explain your method of doing that 1/3 brick tile pattern that you mentioned at the beginning.
I was afraid somebody was going to ask me about that. Okay, so here's one way that you can do it today. And let's just kind of slide over to the, you can't do it automatically. And basically what you need to do is come in here and we just make a copy of this. And then I use the tile repeat to do it, okay? So it requires some CAD work, and typically what I'm gonna do is just do a call out, something that looks like, you know, this. It says, hey, you know, 1/3 offset. Now, that's the way that you can do it today. And again, depending on how much tile you want and draw it in here, I drew that kind of sloppy, you can do that. We have addressed this issue. Let's see if I have that image here. We have addressed that issue. I've done the 1/3 offset you can see here. And I don't know if you can see, but down here in the offset area, see where it says 1/3? Are you there, Lauren?
Oh, yeah, sorry, there was just some noise behind me as well. I didn't want to.
Okay. So we have addressed this, and when we get ready to release sometime, you know, in the first quarter of the year, this is something that we have addressed. It's been a question that comes up quite a bit, and you can type in any value in this offset that you want. So it could be 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, whatever you want. It's just a fractional input that you can type in there. And so your pattern information would just be grid, and then you choose how you want it to set, and then you get a preview of it over here in the preview panel.
Okay, great.
Does that work?
I think so.
Okay.
I had found something in Chief Talk about downloading a different pattern file.
Yeah.
That had worked when I tried it. I can't quite remember. It was a little while ago when I had done it.
Yeah, you can come into the patterns. We do have a library out here, and I'm not sure. Let's pop out there. Adrian, do we have a 1/3 offset in the fill patterns?
I don't know right off the top of my head. There might be one.
This one looks close. It's not quite. It's close. That looks like it's a 1/3-ish.
Yeah, they're but it doesn't have the almost like
Yeah.
the step.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was able to.
there are some that you can go out into the library. I'm not certainly familiar with all of them out there that you can find that do this. And the only way that I typically have done that when it requires is I've just drawn it myself. And you know, once you use the transform and replicate, you can easily just click and have it generate. It does require a little bit more effort to, you know, to draw it.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, earlier you mentioned that you made some adjustments to the glass in standard view, and Valerie would like to know if you could demonstrate how you did that.
Yeah, if you look at my view here, and let's see, a lot of times you won't see the glass in a standard view. It's more obvious when you go to vector view and it shows up as more of a opaque color, and it becomes very obvious. But sometimes when you do a view in here, you won't see glass very easily because of the transparency of it. So what I did is I just took my glass information, and let's just use this adjust material definition tool. And underneath the properties, typically this is going to be a transparent material, and it's going to probably be just maybe a, you know, crown glass or a custom glass. It has a refraction amount. I think the default's probably 1. And when you do that and you're back into the standard view, almost impossible to see, right? It's almost impossible to see. So what I've done, so I can see it a little bit, and this will mess up probably your ray trace if you're planning on ray tracing. But if you just want to use it in your standard view, all I did was change the material to a general material and not a transparent material. And then I just took the transparency and dialed it in at 50%. And that's why you're seeing my glass here.
Thanks, Scott. Wendy ended up writing in her question. She says, how do you put a pencil liner on an arched niche?
So if we have a niche, let's see if we can kind of come over here and throw a niche on the side of the wall. Let's see if I can pull that over just, well, we'll just pull him up and over so we have a little bit of room. So let's assume that we have this niche and you want to have a pencil liner that would be on the niche. What you can do, step 1, is open up the niche. Let's put an arch on it, and let's just put a slide arch on here. That's pretty big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. So here's our arch on the niche, right? And then I think the easiest way to do this would just to be say that it has casing. And let's just put a thin casing on here at maybe, let's just use 1 inch in there. And then you can go out into your casing library, choose the profile that you want. And let's see if we can find something in here. We'll just use something basic. So that's one easy way to quickly throw a pencil rail on it so I don't have to necessarily trace it. Does that work? Hopefully that works for you, Wendy. If not, chat back in for us.
Thanks, Scott. We have a question from Andrea Rogers. Hi, Andrea. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hey, Andrea.
Hi. Could you show me how to do a shower door? I'm pretty sure you would use a slider, but I want a sliding shower entry door with a grid to it. So it's framed and it has a grid pattern to the entire sliding shower door. With the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we modify this barn door? Would it work? Or do you want a typical shower door?
Yeah, floor to ceiling height, sliding
Okay.
shower door with a grid.
Okay, let's delete that door. Let's put in a, let's go into our door tool. Let's look at the sliding door. Okay, and this one's the privacy door. Would you want 2 doors
Yes.
like this? Okay.
Correct.
So you're going to want to open this up, remove the casing, kind of some of the similar steps that we did previously. It goes all the way to the ceiling?
Yes. So it's frame to frame, you know, one solid wall and the other sliding, you know, like your typical slider.
Okay, so in this case, we'd set it to be 3 inches in thickness. We'd make sure that it's a slab style door. And then the height of it, boy, that's probably a 10-foot door. No casing, right? No interior casing.
Mhm.
And we'll get rid of the jamb because that's probably has an indicator on there. That's a start. I don't have any hardware on there, but is that beginning to look like what you're after?
Yeah, just but 2 panels, you know, so I want only one fixed to the left
One.
and then the right sliding.
Okay, so let's look at what the options are for the sliders. Where is that option here? Slider, well, I know we have that setting. Adrian, you out there, do you know where that slider? Okay, here we go. Okay, so if you look here, I'm on the options panel,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
and you only want one slider?
Correct.
Okay, one slider. So I now have one big slider. I'm not sure it will open. It's pretty big. Let's make it a little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Is that close? I have no hardware on it.
Yeah. Now I want to put a grid in that. So basically I
Oh,
want to show a grid pattern.
like lights or something in it?
No, almost like a window, you know, your window grid where it's, you know, the cross hatch.
Mm-hmm. Well, boy.
So we need to frame it.
Yeah. Okay, Chief Staff, who wants to jump in here and help out? Let's see if we have
Scott,
one in the library. Yeah.
this is Philip here. So I was
Yeah.
just doing that, and I changed the door style to a glass panel. And then I
Okay.
removed the casing, and then just added lights in there, and then of course
Okay.
adjust the panel width in the bottom.
Okay.
So I actually canceled out of that,
Oh, all right.
and then at the top there under door style,
Yeah.
change that to glass panel,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would need to adjust the. Yep, exactly.
Is that close, Andrea?
Yeah. But I would want them, excuse me, much larger, you know, but yes, definitely. Okay, I get it now. And then I can adjust the width and the distance of those.
Right. Yep.
And I can also do it on the other wall. So it's one.
Yeah, and I think what you'd end up doing is if this is a door you liked, you could add it into your library.
Okay.
Click, and then it's in your library and you can reuse it.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Does that work for you?
It works. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Scott, we have a question from Stacy Mule. Hi, Stacy, go ahead.
Hey, Scott. I have a hard question like always.
Uh-oh.
If you have a whole wall of tile, so let's say that whole back shower wall, and I have a 24 by 48 inch tile, the tile comes in multiple faces. So like pretend you're going to quarter turn it, for example, but if I made a custom backsplash and made the 4 rectangles in the 24 by 48 and applied 4 different faces to each 4 sections, can you group those 4 together and then copy and paste the rest of the wall? Or do I have to copy every single one and draw custom backsplash rectangles all over the wall and then apply the faces?
Let's pull this wall out so we have a little extra room. Let's open up this elevation. Okay. So you've got a condition where you've got, did you say 24 by 48 inch?
24 by 48.
Those are big. So I think, you know, I don't have a quick way to do it. I would use the backsplash tool potentially. And let's just come in here and start at the bottom over here. I'm going to click and drag, and you said 48 by 24.
Yep.
Okay. And you've got a particular tile. Let's see if we can go in and find a material in here from maybe Dell Tile or somebody that has a big tile. Where are you, Dell?
Or you could use Decton.
Yeah, how about this tile? Okay, and I'm going to use the multiple copy tool, and I'm going to set this to be every 48 inches. And we'll just assume that that's that for that one. Okay, I still have them. And then you want to copy this one up, and we want to slide this up. We said that was 24 inches, right? So let's just slide this up maybe 24 inches. And then we'll pull that back maybe to there, and then do the multiple copy so that we now have a half offset, even though those are probably going to require a third. Ah. Okay, sorry, it's taking me a little bit longer than it probably should. Okay, so I now have these tiles, and I'm just going to come in here and paint them to be different. And I'm just choosing different colors. So if you have your different tiles set up, let's see if that looks any different in our camera view. Probably looks a little crazy. Switch that back over to standard view. So if you have each individual tile, Stacy, you could then apply whatever material you wanted to each one of those individually. And then if you use that multiple copy, then it would be pretty easy to fill your wall. And that's,
So can you group
that's
those,
one.
all those right there together and make that a single copy and then paste it up? Or do you have to do that process for the whole wall?
No, I would, let's just assume that we had, let's grab another wall here, and we'll just draw it over. So if I had this, let's make it a little bit wider. So if I had this room and I wanted it to be exactly on the other side, you can easily grab those tiles, and it'd be easy to do probably in another view, but you can grab them. You could block them. There's a block command.
Block it and then, okay.
And you can also copy and reflect it around. If I have to rotate around here, and put them on the other wall.
Perfect. That's what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, we have a question from Sandra Cross. Go ahead, Sandra, and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. I have a question about the glass door and the glass wall.
Okay.
When I do a shower, I put the glass wall in and then add the door in there. I like the opening above the shower door. Like I don't want a wall above the shower door. I want it to be open. Do you know what I mean? So
Okay, so you want this to be pulled down to something like this?
yeah, but then I want the sides to go up to the ceiling.
Okay.
On either side, but I want I don't want any wall just above the shower door so that, you know, you can have airflow through.
So this area right above the door, you don't want.
I want that to be open. So I want full walls on either side, but above that door to have it just with nothing. And how do I do that?
There'd be a couple ways you could do it. One is you could take an elevation view of the outside of this, and let's just shoot an elevation. You could click on this, and I think you can pull this down and put some breaks in here. Let's just put a couple of breaks in here. And we'll just sloppily do this. So I can pull this down
Oh, I see.
right in here. So that's one way you could do it. And then you can pull these up however, you know, however you want that shape. Another way you could do this probably, and it would happen automatically, is to make it a railing wall. Let's see what that looks like in the 3D view. Make sure that's, is that kind of what you're after?
Basically, yes.
Okay. So if I press undo a bunch of times here and get back to having a regular wall, I think what you can do, Sandra, is make this a railing wall. Let's open him up, and where is it? One more undo. Get him back to the top. So a railing wall, typically, if we double click, and this will take a couple of things because I got to make it a railing and then tell it that it's solid. Where are you? Rail style, solid. Okay. And then if I want to set the height of this, if I come over on the newels and balusters and let's say we make the height at 10 feet, there's another way to do it. And then I'd remove that cap off the top once I finished it. But that will exactly follow the door.
Okay, that's a great way of doing it. Yeah.
That's probably a faster way to do it.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, we have a question from Laura Engel. Hi, Laura. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hey, Laura. Good.
How do you swoop in and get some of these angles? I don't know if I'm just sort of new to the whole mouse thing on my Mac, or I'm just not deleting walls, but you kind of get right in there. And I'm
Are you
just,
talking
again,
about my navigation here?
yes. Like when you're getting into like do the back, like the back molding or the niche or whatever, are you making the glass wall invisible to get in there?
Okay, so a couple things. One, you notice that I don't have a wall on the other side of the bathtub, right?
Correct.
And what I've done just for this video is I took that wall and I made it invisible.
Okay.
Okay, and if I toggle that back to be visible, you'll see it, right? One of the things you can do with your camera, I don't know that I like to do it a lot, but you can do this with your camera setting. You'll find this underneath your edit active view. And you can actually come down towards the bottom of this and say hide exterior facing walls. And then when you zoom around, you're still seeing the doors and the windows there. But as you zoom around or rotate around, it makes those walls invisible as you kind of move around.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I do, let's switch that back so that that's not happening. One of the things that I do is I'll temporarily take one of these walls and just force it to be invisible. That will actually turn off the items on the wall. And then I can get right in, maybe I can get my renderings. And then I also use some tricks and shortcuts on my keyboard, on my mouse, actually. You're using a Mac?
Yes.
Do you have a mouse?
Yes.
Okay. So is it a magic mouse or do you have a center button?
I don't know. This is all new to me. So I've got like buttons that I can click on either side, and then there's something in the center, but I don't know if it's, okay.
So one of the things that I do with my mouse, and you can also do this if you don't have a center button, if you're a Mac user or trackpad user, because I use a Mac as well. When I'm looking at a 3D view, I can hold down my middle mouse button, which is the wheel, and I can move back and forth, which is really great because if I want to move around and I'm in a selection mode, I can do that. I can also orbit by holding down the Alt key. And I think, I'm trying to look at my Mac over here. I think that might be the Option key, but I don't have my mouse shortcut pad. But that allows me to orbit around. So if I were trying to paint this tile on the other side of the wall that you can't see, well, I'm still in paint mode, but I could hold my rotator around, still be in that mode, and then paint that wall on the side.
Got it.
So it allows me to, and then I can zoom in. And sometimes when you get real close, let's look at the cabinets. Let's look at the cabinets. When you get real close to something, it can clip it. So I set my clipping distance at 2 inches, and you might check yours. The default might be at 12 or something, but I get it very close. If I reset this to 12 or something like that, and then I start getting in here, it starts clipping through the surfaces and you see into the cabinet. But if you want to get real close, you can set that clipping very tight, and then you can get right up next to it and figure out what it is you want to work on.
Perfect. I appreciate it. I knew there had to be some fun tricks to make it easier. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for calling in, Laura.
Looks like we have a question from Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, Scott. So I got two questions. One is with the niche. So the frame that goes around the niche, is there a way to paint that to be the same material as the back of the niche without making the rest of the wall turn that same color or pattern?
Okay. Let's take a look. We have this crazy niche we put over here, and you want it to be the same material as the back.
Yes.
Okay.
When I attempt to do that, it always makes the wall the same material.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a great question, because a lot of times if your niche doesn't have a frame, let me toggle my view here so you can see this. So you'll notice that my niche actually has a different material than the wall. And the reason that mine has a different material, I always put a frame on it, on my niche, so that I can specifically paint the side of it. And a lot of times if you look at my default niche, I make the frame very, very thin. So for that exact purpose, I can then paint the side of it, whatever material I want, and not affect the wall.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep, that will work.
Now that can be as thick as you want, and maybe you want it a 1/2 inch thick. I just make mine thin because of that exact question you bring up.
Okay, super. Thank you. So I have one more.
Okay.
So when we have a pony wall,
Yeah.
And the lower is tile and the upper is the glass.
Yep.
Can you make that wall cap not be at the top of the glass, but actually sit on top of the pony wall?
Okay, let's make sure I understand what you're after here. Let me go in and grab this wall, and let's just draw it across here.
My pony wall always looks framed. I don't ever have a top to it. So.
Okay, so is this what you're after, is a wall that looks like this?
Yeah, how do you get the cap on that? Does it automatically show up that way?
Yeah, are you using, what product are you using, Kathy?
Oh, I'm using 12 Pro.
Are you using Chief Architect Premier X12?
Yeah.
In theory, from your floor plan view, let's kind of come over where I drew that wall. Underneath your wall types, you're using the glass straight pony wall tool.
Oh, maybe I hadn't been. Maybe I just keep making my own.
So when you use that tool, of course, you can set your own defaults. Mine may look different than yours. It should come in with, and that has a different material on the top, it should come in with a wall cap.
You know what? It does. Yep. So I guess I was just doing my own, and it didn't work out that way. So I
Yeah.
should just use what you have in there.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an easy way to answer the question. Thank you.
Well, I like the easy ones. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
And we have Wilson Matthews wanted to ask a question. Go ahead, Wilson.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Wilson.
Hi, just a question. You are showing the clipping plane for that camera or something. Where was that settings again?
Yeah, you'll find that underneath the Edit Active View.
Okay.
And it's just towards the bottom.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. All right, thanks all. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, our very last question comes from Tracy Stevens. Did you have a question, Tracy?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, my question is about the half glass pony walls, but in a neo angle shower situation.
Okay.
Where it all displays pretty accurately, except for on the sides of the neo angle wall where the door is meeting the half walls.
Okay.
I can't get the finished material on the ends of the walls. It shows up as plywood, or, you know, I can't usually paint it on.
Okay.
And also the curb doesn't show up pretty well, but I like your idea of using a countertop for the shower curb instead of doing just a short wall with a cap. That probably would be better.
Right. That's always an option.
Yeah.
So you have an angled wall similar to what I have here. Is that what you're after?
Right. Right.
And then you put a door in there and it's having issues?
Right. Once you put the door in, then the sides of the walls that meet the door
Okay.
just look like they're cut in a section view or something. They don't look finished.
Okay. Does mine look okay here?
Yes.
Let's pop the molding out of that room so it doesn't get confusing. And what product are you using, Kathy? Or it's Tracy, right?
Yeah. Interiors 12.
Interiors 12. Yeah, I think it should work okay. If you have yeah.
Some of the showers I draw because of the room size are fairly small, and I have noticed that if I make it larger, sometimes that resolves.
Okay.
But if I try to make it the actual size that is going to work in the room, and they're, you know, code clearance sizes, but still they're small.
Yeah.
And then where the half wall is kind of turning that corner at the angle, you know, that end piece doesn't get finished.
I'm certainly not aware of some of the issues that you can face with those, but if you have an example plan that's doing it to, then maybe you could button that up and send it into our support group.
Okay.
And we can
I've been struggling with it for a couple of years. I've had numerous calls about it, but
yeah.
But the way you've drawn it, I mean, it's working perfectly well.
If you've been having an issue like this for a couple years, sometimes when you upgrade, the template plans may be using an old template plan. And what you can do just to check yourself is when you do a new plan, go to File, and underneath your File menu, go to Template and go to, let's see here, New Plan from Template. And just explicitly make sure that you browse out. It should open up to your documents area, and make sure you just browse out and make sure that you said you're using X12, right?
Yes.
Make sure you just browse out, and it should just come into that template and open up the either the residential template or the kitchen and bath template and recreate that same scenario from scratch, because the newer template files may have resolved some of the issues that
Oh,
we
okay.
had. And then you can always reset it to those current templates if you don't have a custom one. And that may be one place to at least begin.
Right. I haven't actually used the templates. I just opened a new plan. So maybe that's definitely
and
something to try.
yeah, because a lot of times when you upgrade, when you do the migration, sometimes it's looking at the old template file, even though you're using a newer version.
Okay.
It can be, yeah, and you might just start there and just see
Yeah.
if it works, and if it does, great, and if not, button up the plan and send it in, and hopefully somebody can point you in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott, it looks like we've gotten to all the hands who have been raised.
Great. Next Thursday, we're doing some closet design. So this will be for the design, dimensioning, and cabinets. Same time, same place, next Thursday at noon. Make sure you sign up for that. Kayla will be presenting it, and we're looking forward to some high-end closet design. And then also make sure that you're aware of our learning resources. These free webinars we've been doing Thursdays at noon. The virtual training seminars, those are firing up this next couple of weeks. The introductory class will start September 1st. These are 4 hours a day. Intermediate class starts September 2nd. The kitchen and bath class starts September 15th. And then we do those same classes on demand. If you just want to watch them without an instructor, you can do some binge watching over the weekend. They're a great class. One-on-one training. You can sit with one of our certified instructors and they'll screen share and work on your projects. Our video playlists, there's lots of videos out there on our website. Make sure you're taking advantage of those. The complement to those are the how-to articles. And then Chief Talk, our user forum, is a great resource where users answer questions and help one another. Really, really great resource. Well, thanks everybody for attending. And remember to sign up next week for our closet design seminar. We'll be going through that same place, same time, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot for attending and have a great day.